Welcome to SpiritEcho. Tonight, we walk into the hush of forgotten snow, where pine shadows stretch long, and the wind whispers of love, bound to fate. Long ago, in a village lost to memory, a man set a bird free, and in return, received a wife with wings unseen. But every gift carries a hidden cost. This is the haunting tale of the crane wife. In the far north of Japan, cradled between mountains and quiet lakes, there lay a village where winter seemed to stretch forever. Snow blanketed the rooftops like folded silk, and pine trees whispered secrets into the wind. On the edge of the woods, in a cottage worn by time and weather, lived a man named Osamu. He was neither young nor old. His hair still black but streaked with grey. His hands calloused from years of woodwork and gathering. He lived simply, speaking little, always alone. Yet his heart remained open, like a door never quite shut, waiting for someone who never came. One bitter afternoon, as twilight stained the sky with plum and ash, Osamu wandered deep into the forest in search of firewood. Amid the hush of snowfall, he heard it, a faint cry, sharp, desperate, not human, but aching with pain. He followed the sound into a clearing. There, tangled in a hunter's trap, lay a white crane, its feathers torn, one wing bent, blood staining the snow like ink across rice paper. Osamu knelt, his breath clouding in the cold. "You poor thing," he whispered. "I won't hurt you." With trembling hands, he unfastened the snare. The crane did not resist. It only looked at him, eyes deep and still, almost human. Then, with a slow beat of its wings, it rose into the falling snow and vanished into the mist. Osamu stood for a long while, hands still open, as if something unseen had passed between them. That night, the wind howled around his cottage like a spirit in mourning. Snow piled against the windows. The fire hissed against the cold. Osamu was preparing a simple bowl of miso broth when... Knock, knock! A soft tapping at the door. When he opened it, his breath caught. There stood a young woman, her robe white as snow, hair glistening with frost, her face pale, serene, her voice no louder than wind across a frozen field. "I am lost, and the storm is too strong. May I come in?" He nodded, stepping aside, uncertain if he had welcomed a woman or a dream. She stayed that night, and the next, until the days folded quietly into each other like layers of silk. She called herself Tsuki. She spoke gently, cooked simply, and often stood by the window, staring into the snowfall as though hearing secrets only she could understand. They shared tea, laughter, and long silences. No declarations, only comfort. Osamu felt warmth return to his home, and to his heart. In time, they were wed. Not with fanfare, but with folded hands and a glance that said, "I see you." For a time, they lived contentedly. But Osamu's savings dwindled, and the winter was harsh. One morning, Tsuki came to him with a quiet smile. "Let me weave for you," she said. "I will make cloth so fine it will change our fortune. But promise me one thing. Do not watch me as I work, no matter what you hear." Osamu hesitated, but agreed. She set up a loom in the next room. For days the sound of weaving filled the house. Click, tap, hum. sometimes soft, sometimes strange. When she emerged, she was pale, her robe damp with sweat. But in her arms she carried a bolt of cloth that shimmered like moonlight on snow. It sold for a king's ransom, and they lived well again. But each time she wove, Tsuki returned weaker, thinner, her hands trembling. And still she forbade him to look. At last, one night, curiosity overpowered love. Osamu slid open the door, just a crack, and froze. There was no woman at the loom, only a crane. Its feathers torn in patches, wings bloodied, yet still it moved delicately, pulling strands from its own body, threading them into the cloth. The crane turned slowly. Its eyes found his. Not with fear, but with sorrow. When Osamu blinked, Tsuki stood before him once more. Her eyes filled with tears that would not fall. I wished only to repay your kindness. I wished only to stay by your side. But you have seen me now. The promise is broken. Her voice trembled. I can no longer remain. She walked barefoot to the door, snow already drifting inside. Turning once, her face gentle, neither angry nor bitter, only tired. And then, with a breath of wind, she rose into the sky, her feathers catching the moonlight, until she was gone. Osamu stood in the doorway until dawn, listening for wings that would never return. He never remarried, and every winter he sat by the window watching the falling snow, wondering if she still watched him too. In Japanese folklore, the crane is said to live 1,000 years, a symbol of loyalty, grace, and the thin thread between this world and the next. But in the tale of the crane wife, the wonder lies not in the magic, but in the shadow it casts upon love. Love without understanding turns to expectation. Love without respect becomes possession. And sometimes, love demands we trust what can never be seen. This story whispers a warning. Not all sacrifices are visible, and not all promises can be broken without consequence. Thank you for listening, here on SpiritEcho. May your heart remain true, and may the echoes of forgotten wings remind you, some vows are eternal.